So it was very interesting. But at that convention, I met a couple, and she is going to be our speaker tonight. We discussed earlier, you know, how I said that I didn't have a speaker lined up, but I knew that God would provide. Well, guess what? Tonight we have Kathie Glass, who's a libertarian that's running for governor of this great state, and she's going to come and speak to us. Kathie?
Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you, and it was wonderful to meet Ann and the others from the Montgomery County Tea Party. I've known Ginger for a little while, and some of you others, but this is a good opportunity for me, and I very much appreciate it. I don't have a formal speech, but I'm going to just outline, you know, who I am and why I'm running and why I think you should vote for me. Let me just get a gauge here of who we are. Anybody here thinks that it would be okay if America dies and takes Texas with it, and Wendy Davis is our Texas governor? Okay, I don't see a hand. Well, let me change it this way. Who here is okay if America dies and takes Texas with it, and Greg Abbott is our Texas governor? Not much difference, is it? Well, I want to be Texas governor because I think it really doesn't make a difference if one of those other two is governor, because we're going to lose our Constitution, our liberty, our country, and everything. I want to be Texas governor to unite Texans so we can do again what we have done before: face down federal tyranny and change the course of history. I believe that Washington is broken and the two-party system is corrupt and broken. And if you believe those two things, then you internalize them, then you know why I'm running for Texas governor and as a libertarian. I won't go into a long speech about how we got here, because I think this group knows it. Washington is broken because we have an out-of-control federal government that will not respect the Constitution, and no one's making them. This has been going on for a long time, but it's reached a problem, a real critical point here. So that's why Washington's broken. That's why I focus on Texas. And that's why I think that nothing is going to fix Washington. It's irretrievably broken for the near term. We've got some problems here at home, but we are not that far gone here in Texas so that we can't turn this thing around and save our state. So that's why Texas. That's why I focus on Texas. Ronald Reagan said in his 1964 speech, A Time for Choosing, he said, "America is freedom's last stand." Well, I believe that, but I also believe that Texas is America's last stand. And that's why I'm focused here. I'm not turning my back on America when I take this position and this approach. In fact, it's just the opposite. This is the only way I know to save my country. So we're taking our country back one state at a time, starting with Texas. That's all I've got to say about that. Now, why governor? Well, if you love liberty, the office of Texas governor is the most powerful one on the face of the earth. People who say it's a weak position, they just don't know the awesome powers. Because I think that Texas is the only force that I know of that is sufficient to push back on an out-of-control federal government. But only if we have the right leader. Only if we have a shared vision of what Texans need to do, and only if we have a plan for how to do it. So that's why I want to be Texas governor. And how did this realization come to me? Let me say a few words about that. I've been interested in liberty my whole life. I've been a natural-born libertarian my whole life. I love to study history, economics, philosophy, and just observe politics. And I knew, of course, as you all did, I'm sure, that we were on the wrong course. That there was going to be a time coming when it was all going to fall apart, as all civilizations do that embark upon this course. But I thought that day would be when I was dead and gone. And that future generations would just have to find a way to turn this around. Well, in 2009, that's when we had the bailouts and all those things, and the election of Obama and Obamacare. I saw it differently. I saw the way things were going. I was going to outlive my country. And that's what hit me in the gut and spurred me to act. And that's why when I came to this realization, I just, for a long time, I said, what can I do? What can I do? It seems so late. I'm only one person. How can I do this? And when it came to me that I should run for Texas governor, I had at least that much peace in knowing what I was supposed to be doing. Because well, when I ran for governor in 2010, some people would say, are you going to run for president? I was like, I want to be Texas governor. Why would I accept a demotion? Yeah, that's a joke and it gets laughs, but it's true. It's true. That's why I would rather be Texas governor than president. Because I don't see anything I could do as president. But as Texas governor, yes, I see it. So that's why I'm running for Texas governor. And that's why I say, if I don't win, I don't see it makes a difference who does. Because they don't see the office the way I do. They don't see the powers, and so they won't use them. Well, okay, why libertarian? Because I really believe the two-party system is corrupted by special interests, by an influential, well-connected few that uses the machinery, mechanism of government to get things that they could never get in the free market or any other way. Cronyism is what I call it. And it affects almost every aspect of our decision-making process here in Texas. And I see lots of good people who've tried to work for liberty in the Republican Party. Well, how's that worked out for us? It's not for lack of effort. Good effort. But it's just that the system, it's a rigged game. I tell my liberty friends in the Republican Party that we have tested the hypothesis here in Texas for 20 years that you can get liberty in the Republican Party. For 20 years, we've had nothing but Republicans in every statewide office. They've controlled the House and the Senate, supermajorities at times. Where has it gotten us? We have more, higher taxes, higher spending, more debt. We're second per capita debt in the nation. We have more assault on our property rights, our privacy rights, and we have a more out of control federal government that no one's pushing back on. So that's how I say it's a rigged game, and keeping doing what you've always done is not going to change things. How does it change? You get more than a supermajority? No, and it's not the people. I'm not calling the people corrupt. Every once in a while, a really good one gets elected, but the system, the process, doesn't allow any changes. So that's why I say I'm not a crony. Greg Abbott, I got to call him a crony. Because he's got the crony money and the crony backing. No one gets $40 million given to him. Nobody's got $40 million to give except the rich and powerful. And they don't give it unless they are assured that that's going to be a good investment. They're going to get a good return. Meaning that things will get done, that they won't get done and won't get done if they don't want it. Like securing the border. So that's why I'm saying I'm running for Texas governor as a libertarian. I have a plan for Texas independence, not secession. I haven't heard anybody else in this race talk about the problems we're facing and the problems that are going to come. Because the day will come soon when Washington is not just broken, but it's totally collapsed. You can have a $17, $18 trillion debt and have a functioning currency for very long. When that goes, a whole lot of things will happen. We will lose all sorts of things we've come to rely on the federal government for, like over 35% of our state budget. And it won't be there anymore. And we'll have to stand on our own 2 feet. Do things for ourselves that we should have been doing all along, but of necessity we will suddenly have to. I'm looking forward to that day, not looking forward in a positive way, but looking to that day. And that's what my plan for Texas independence is designed to do. To identify things that we should be and are going to have to be doing for ourselves, like controlling our own immigration policy. It's not a federal function. Like securing our own border. We should be doing that. Back in 2010, I had a letter, there's a copy of it out there on the table, that I tried to give to Greg Abbott, but he didn't show up for any debates, saying, you are Commander-in-Chief of the Texas military. Under our Texas Constitution, You control the Texas military, which is the State Guard, National Guard, Air National Guard. And you should use the State Guard to secure our border. He could have done it. We have the resources, we have the ability to secure our border. All we lack, and one person can do that. One person can make that happen. If you're governor of Texas and you have the will to do it. And the reason I said State Guard is because you don't want to use the National Guard. It can be nationalized. You don't want to be down there in a mission or an operation and have the president nationalize the force you're using. But the State Guard is under the total control of the governor. It's a very old and very honored outfit. It predates the state of Texas, actually. It needs to be built up because this is a different mission. And then we need to give it more resources, more training, and more support. But it can be done, and that's what I would use, and we could use to do that immediately. Because when I talk about border security, border enforcement, I'm talking about enforcing Texas state law, laws against trespass on private property, other crimes of violence. That's what we need to do. That's what our State Guard needs to do, to go down there on the border and help these property owners be more secure in their property. Help the local law enforcement officers who are just overwhelmed by this. And let people know, let everyone know that these property owners, they're not just on their own, they've got the state of Texas backing them. But that's my plan for Texas independence, and you can read more about it on my website. But it's things like, we should have our own immigration policy. Immigration is not a federal function. It's not in Article 1, Section 8. Naturalization is, but not immigration. And in times past, Texas has had a guest worker program. Excuse me. Somebody got some water. Been talking all day. And I wasn't here in Texas then, but I've seen pictures, it was before my day, pictures of Texas offices down on the border where we implemented our own Texas guest worker program. And so I think that's what we should do again. But this is just an example of the way we should make our own decisions in Texas on a vast array of things. Immigration, they don't want to solve this problem in Washington. They don't want to secure the border. And by relying on Washington to do those things, we know it's not going to get done. It causes more and more chaos. We'd secured the border in 2010. It would have been a far simpler thing to do. If I'd been governor, we wouldn't be having, in 2010, we wouldn't be having these problems on the border right now. But these problems are going to continue unless I become governor in 2014. That's just a fact. But I'm looking for a way that Texas, we just realize that we should act like the sovereign state we are, that we have this power. We have this ability. We just lack the will to use it. People ask me, can you win? I hear that a lot. I really like what you have to say, but can you win? And I point out to them that in a competitive three-way race, you don't need a majority of votes to get into office. You just need a plurality. There's no runoff come November. Think about that. That means 34% could put you in office. So I'm out there in my bus. I hope you noticed it as you came in. We're touring all 254 counties in Texas, trying to make this a competitive three-way race so that that dynamic does come into play. I'm looking for 1/3 of Texas voters who will vote in the November election. Not even 1/3 of Texas, but 1/3 of those voters who see the problems that I see and see that no one else is going to address them. That's all we need. That's a lot, but it's a lot less than a majority. And so that's not, I'm gonna work cut out for me. I understand that. But I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and that gives you a lot of assurance anytime that you have that it going for you. If I do it to the best of my ability and I work as hard as I can, then I know the results are not in my hands. I know that other people are going to have to pitch in and share this vision and execute on this plan with me. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, just my background. I was born in Beaufort, Georgia. I was from a blue-collar family. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I worked my way through college and law school, University of Georgia. And then on 7/7 of 77, I came to Texas. I met Tom Glass, good Aggie from Odessa, Texas. We got married, moved to Houston, set up housekeeping, and I practiced law. He worked for various companies. ExxonMobil was his last job. He just retired end of the year so he could run this campaign full time. And we have a small ranch in Lee County, McDade actually. That's where the bus stays when we're not on the road. We'd like to retire there, but things happen and we're not there yet. So I've got a foot in both worlds, the urban areas of Texas and the rural areas. And that's one thing. I go around to all these counties, and we've been to about half of the 254 counties, mostly in the smaller counties. We've been out to Loving County, population 78, I think, and we've been to Wichita Falls, and Texarkana, and we've been lots of places. But this is one thing and the reason we're doing that is to bypass the major media markets, where you don't hear much about other alternatives. It's hard to break through it into the media in Dallas or even Houston, where I'm from. It's just hard to make yourself newsworthy there. But I can go into San Angelo, Midland, Odessa, Wichita Falls, Abilene, and I'm news. And I'm on TV. And when I go out and I'm in the newspaper, and then when I'm on radio, and then when I go out to these other counties, they say, "Oh, Kathie Glass, I saw you on TV." And that's what I'm working on to make myself competitive in this race. And it hasn't happened in Houston. So if you watch Houston television, you've not. I can go into a Montgomery County Kroger and not have people say Kathie Glass, but we're working on that because this is part of getting your name and face ID out there. And I think it's working, our strategy. But we're still working on that. But it is a way to get around the fact that in Texas, about 5 counties elect all of our statewide offices. The population is just, the numbers are there. That's all they need. So they don't go out to other people, other places, rural places, and get different points of view. And I can tell you things look different in rural Texas than they do in the larger cities. Issues like water rights and eminent domain and a whole lot of things are just more important to the rural Texans than there are in other places. And it really resonates because they know in these counties, my 254 counties, they know their voices are not being heard. And we go all over Texas and we hear this common response. People are sick of the cronyism. They're sick of that corrupt two-party system. They really do believe it's not working for them. They're sick of Washington dictating and controlling every aspect of our lives. They're sick of the spying, the NSA spying, their lack of privacy, stealing all our emails and our phone conversations. And they're just sick of it. And they do want to try different things. They just don't know, didn't know that I exist, didn't know there was another option, hadn't heard this before, but yet they like it. They really like it. And we'll get back to that spying. We live in a surveillance state that could easily become a police state. We can't let that happen. America can never become a police state. And this cuts across all lines, left, right, all economic, social status. Nobody wants to live in a police state. We've never had that in America before. Never even thought about it. We've seen it in other places, East Germany, Soviet Russia. We saw what happened there, but they didn't have the technology that we have now. If we become a police state, I don't know how we ever get out of it. Not just America, but the world. That's what I think that's the stakes of where we are and the crisis that we face. And that's why I want to be Texas governor, because I want to nullify all of these unconstitutional federal acts. Had a rally in San Antonio where NSA has one of their 2 super spy centers in San Antonio, the others in Utah, where they store all of this data that they've collected on us. We had to pull the plug on the NSA around it because they're operating on our Texas grid. And that's another thing that differentiates me from my opponents. I haven't heard either of them say anything about the NSA and the spying and the surveillance state. I haven't heard any of them say anything constructive and about the border and what it means and what should be done about it. Another thing that differentiates me from my opponents is the water rights. We had a November proposition, this last November, but Prop 6. It basically, of course, they sold it as you look like water, don't you? Well, then you'll vote for Prop 6 if you want the children to have water. Well, it was more complicated than that, of course. But basically, what Prop 6 did is it gave a 3-man board appointed by the governor the power to essentially control all Texas groundwater, the water in the aquifers. And if that doesn't resonate with city people that much, I just tell them, well, that's the water that grows the food you eat. And you should care. I coined the term Nix Prop 6, and I worked to defeat it, but we weren't successful. So plan B, if somebody's going to appoint that 3-man board, it should be me. Because I want to appoint cronies. I want to appoint people who understand property rights and the value of that water in the aquifer, and it shouldn't be given to cronies to support developments that they have done that nature and the free market said they shouldn't have done because there's no water there. So why did they do it? Are they dumb? No, they're not dumb. They just know that they have connections. And after they've built that development that needs water, they'll get water. They'll have it piped in from hundreds of miles away. They don't fret these little details like, how am I going to get water for this project? Because they know people. So there's where we are. I see a serious threat. I don't know any other way to fight it other than what I'm doing. I see hard times ahead, but I hope that Texans still have it in them to band together and work against us, because if we don't do it, it's not going to get done. And I shudder to think what's going to happen for my children, my grandchildren, should I be lucky enough to have them, and all the rest. I just refuse to accept the proposition that this is where America dies, this is how it ends. Even if that's true, and I don't believe it is, I know I'm not going to go down without a fight, and I don't think Texans are as well. But if this sounds too bleak for you, I just want to leave you with this. I know how this ends. I read the last chapter in the book, seen the last part of the movie. The good guys win. The forces of liberty will defeat the forces of tyranny. But it won't just happen just because we want it to, and by talking about it, or even getting together in groups like this and talking about it. It will happen when we all get out and work and connect with other people who see this, because they're out there, who have this shared vision of what's coming at us, and who will get together this common plan for how we're going to defeat it. That's how it works. That's what I'm doing. I hope that I can gain your support. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. And I just want to say this. I know we're all working for the same goal. I know we share a common why. We may differ on the what and the how, but that's really why I'm going to say how we do this, I think I'm present the option, and not just an option. I'm the only choice for how we make this happen. So thank you very much for coming, and we will keep working on this. If I don't win this time, I don't know if we got another 4 years, frankly. I don't know if America has 4 years, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep pushing at this until I find a better way, or until we're successful, because we are Texans and we believe in no retreat, no surrender. So thank you very much.
I'm sure y'all have some questions. Who wants to go first?
Wasn't the water board affected by a couple of volunteers? And I don't know where they got the money, but they got $2 million out of the rainy day fund. and they gave it to two people that were very close to the governor?
It was cronyism, big time. And it's cronyism on a large scale that we've never seen before, and that's our water. One thing we don't have in Texas, I say we don't need more laws, we need to repeal laws that we have, and that's true almost all the time. But one law we don't have is a well-defined system of property rights in that water. We've never really defined who owns the water underneath your land and what that ownership means. So we've left it up to the courts. And they've had this decision and that one, and it changes depending on, you know, what the cronies want and that outcome out of that case. But basically, they've seized on this rule of capture, which means, yes, you as a property owner own that water and that aquifer underneath your land, but so does every other landowner. It's like tragedy of the commons. What everybody owns, nobody owns, because nobody controls it, and it's exploited and overused, overgrazed. And that's what's happened with our aquifer water. Because you don't own it really until you pull it up out of the aquifer, that wonderful place that nature gave us to keep that water pure and pristine and safe until it was needed. Now you have to pull it up and put it in a tank or a pond. 50% of it evaporates. But that's what capture means. That's meaning you can say, this is my water, and you cannot drain it. The way it is now, anybody can use that water for any purpose, including selling it. Before, we didn't think you could drain an aquifer. It was so much there. Anybody could use it for any purpose, and no one would say, you're wasting it, because there was always more there. But when you start putting in pipelines and shipping it hundreds of miles away as the water merchants do, one property owner sitting on a mighty aquifer can drain that aquifer dry pretty much by selling it to someone who's going to pipe it down from East Texas to San Marcos so that they can have swimming pools and golf courses. When nature said, no, you shouldn't live there and expect to have swimming pools and golf courses. That's because there's no water. They found a way around it. So that's why I say we need a well-defined system of property rights for the water underneath our land. Because only then can you feel safe that you don't have to pipe it up, draw it up out of your aquifer, put it on your land, and then fight over what's on your land. So that's a problem. We also see more problems, threats to our water from the federal government. EPA wants to delete the word navigable from its description of what it controls. So it was not a good system anyway, but at least it had that limitation that if they wanted to control water, it had to be in a navigable waterway. Now they want to get rid of water navigable. So a trickle on it, basically any property, anywhere, the EPA says it wants to be able to control. Well, we can have that, and that's why I say nullify the EPA. By the way, what is nullification? I bet your group knows this, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but basically it's just say no. No to unconstitutional federal acts. Says, what we say as a state, and it's better to do it as a state, not just one by one. The state of Texas would say that's an unconstitutional act, we won't participate in it, and we won't let it be enforced in our state, in our jurisdiction. Now, that's what the founders intended us to do. We just been falling down on the job. EPA, think of how many manufacturing jobs have left this country. Why is that? Because over there they don't have to put up with stuff like the EPA and OSHA. They can just do business. Well, if we notify the EPA, it would go something like this. We would say, because EPA is not about regulating the environment. That's just a pretext. It's about control. How to control our ag industry, how to control our oil and gas drilling, how to control us, ostensibly, for the environment. But we do have an environmental quality assurance, Texas Commission of Environmental Quality, TCEQ here in Texas. And to the extent that we need to monitor our environment, we can do it here. This is consistent with my plan that Texas makes decisions for Texas. And then we could say refinery, plant, manufacturing facility, you meet our standards, we're good. You can operate. And if the EPA wants to come in and impose additional ones on you and say you do something different or an addition, We'll say, no, that's unconstitutional. It's not in Article 1, Section 8, and we will stand behind you, and we will keep you in business. Think of all the manufacturing jobs that will come to Texas, not just the ones that left here in the first place, but all over the world. That's just an example of what we can do if we can get the federal government back to its constitutional limits. And of course, nullification is not two things. Let me say two things it is not. It's not secession. It's just the opposite. It's enforcing the Constitution, not walking away from it. And it's not suing the federal government. I'm sorry, Greg Abbott. The federal government is not afraid of a lawsuit. If that was a winning strategy, we wouldn't be in this mess. We've seen with Obamacare, though, that the Supreme Court is not going to enforce the Constitution. They haven't done it for the last 100 years, and they're not going to start now. So that's why I say don't sue the buzzards, arrest them. Yeah.
We have 7 weeks approximately between now and the time school starts. I see a grave danger with all these children coming across the border. If you were governor right now, what steps would you take?
Well, this is a very complicated issue, and I try not to give soundbite answers, but and I'm still trying to learn more about it. We don't know nearly enough about this, but let me make 3 quick points. If I said before, if I'd been governor in 2010, we wouldn't be having this problem, but we do, and it would be more difficult to address now.
It's impossible.
But the second point is, we're not being told the truth. I hope everybody realizes that. What we're being told happening is not what's happening. I don't know everything that's behind it, but I do know it's the cartels that's involved from start to finish. And that's a problem. We've got to understand how much the cartels are pushing this and what's their agenda. Is it to do for Texas what they've done for Mexico, basically take over? But they're using these children, and it's despicable. But so I would say we do need to secure the border, because that's what's allowing this to happen, but that doesn't address what to do about these children who are already here. That just addresses how we stop this from happening again. So the third point, what do you do about these children? Well, I frequently said we can't be the world's policeman, and we cannot be the world's CPS. I don't know how these children got here, not all of them, but I know they're here. They're in dire straits, and most of them are innocent of wrongdoing. So I would say what we cannot do, we cannot let the federal government once again seize this and take control of the decision-making process. These are not their children. They're not in their jurisdiction. This is a state matter. However they came to be in our lap, they shouldn't have been, but they're here now, and we should take control of them and figure out what is going on. So I say, yes, we should take care of them, house them, feed them, clothe them, get them medical attention. Most important of all, find out where they came from and what's going on, where are their parents. Send them back to where they need to be, where their families. That's what we would do if this were a blue-eyed, blonde-haired Norwegian child that we found here mysteriously. We would do that. We would get with his consulate, say, who's his parents, let's get him back there, and that's what we should do. That is the compassionate thing to do. Now, as we go through sorting all this out, and we shouldn't let the federal government bust them around. I know there's an inclination to say, good, just get them somewhere else. But I think that's going to come back to haunt us if we let these children be dispersed. And I personally don't want to be part of whatever it is that's happening. I mean, are these children being sent up here, the girls, to be part of some human smuggling operation or some sex ring, and that's where they're going? That's what they're destined to? I don't want to be a part of that. I want to find out where they came from and where they should be and get them back there. Now we may find some, as we go through this process, some that can be adopted. Okay, they've got legitimate reasons to go through that process with family here. All right, we'll find that out. There can be some that, on the other extreme, are not so innocent and have committed crimes and they need to be prosecuted. Well, we need to make that decision. But if we let the federal government come in and take control of this process, we will never get to the bottom of it, and we will never stop it. We'll just go through this on and on and on. So given what I now know, I think that's, we separate how we treat the children who are here and how we stop it from happening again. Yes, sir.
Do you have an opinion on why the Republicans in office aren't being aggressive on securing the border?
I think it's cronyism, and I think it is. I think the elites, and you can call it whatever you want to, the globalists, they don't want a secure border. They don't want it at all. And so people who, individuals, just know that that's the name of the game. And they're
About
doing
here
it.
in Texas.
And here in Texas, yes, I do. I think they know that. I think Rick Perry knows that. Because Rick Perry, now he's trying to send something, not State Guard, but National Guard down to the border, or so I've heard. Well, he could have been doing that all along. And I think it's just a pretext now to make it seem like he's doing something. But he knows he can do it. And he hasn't done it, not for 14 years. So he doesn't want it. I think it's because the special interests that they answer to, for whatever reason, don't want it. So that's why I say it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen with him in office. Yes, sir.
Yes, what is your viewpoints on that Mayor Parker's equal rights thing? For families?
Well, luckily, I'm not in the city of Houston. I'm in the city of Piney Point Village, so I'm not affected by that, but I'm opposed to it.
So you're opposed for it? Can you go into more detail?
Well, it's changing the who can use public restrooms. I'm opposed to that.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense.
But what about the other stuff, like people that are gay and lesbian, how they have so much more rights, you know, that how Mayor Parker made it where they have same-sex benefit?
I'm not sure about that,
Okay.
but I don't think we can do that and consistent with our Texas Constitution. And plus, it's very actuarially unsound.
Anyone else?
Can I give you another scenario on the children?
Okay,
I thought of this the other day watching TV, and some of these kids were coming across the border and they were shouting at the law enforcement and they were saying, "Thank you, Obama." And who taught them that, I don't know. But I see these kids more than an economic blight on our state, our nation. I see them as 10 years from now, they're going to be voters. If they're brought into the system, how are we going to keep them away from the polls?
well, they're not citizens, and this shouldn't be an automatic citizenship to be allowed to stay here. But I have heard stories, and again, we don't really know what's true and what's not, but I've heard stories that I do believe about how they came to be in this situation. I've heard stories of cartels breaking into houses in the middle of the night in Honduras and places, killing all the family except the young girls, putting them on these marches. So that's why I say the cartels are behind this. But for that reason, they're involved at the beginning, and they control all of these pathways, so it wouldn't be happening but for them. So that, to me, that tells me there are some innocent children there who do not really want to be here and would gladly go back if we could facilitate that. The First Lady of Honduras, I heard, came and toured it in her plane. Well, did she take any Honduran children back with her on that plane? She should have. And we should have insisted that she and others, from representatives of those countries, get with us and work with us to return these children from where they came. Yes, ma'am.
I just have one more point, and I really wouldn't say this in any other kind of group, because they would think there would be something wrong with me mentally, but I had a very good friend who left Cuba when Castro took over, and her father was incarcerated when he refused to work as finance minister for Fidel. And I asked her, I said, how could they have known everybody in that country down to the wire about who was doing what? And she said, well, Gail, she said, they had people in small communities that were for Fidel. And they were commissioned by Fidel once he took over, because they would get more bread, they would get more food, they were loyal. You said, thank Obama. I mean, it brought this to my mind. And they were the ones that could tell on any people in the community that were working against the government. And it was block by block. So he's sending a lot of these children to very small towns. They're very conservative. And a lot of those smaller towns now are going to have possibly a very radical people in 10 years that are in their community.
Well, the reason I said from the outset that what we're being told is not what happened is because I know people from these countries and I've heard others speak, and I have never heard them say that what's going on in their country is so bad that they would put their children on a death march, separated from them. I've never heard that. So what's going on is bad in their countries, but I don't know it's such that these children would say, we're glad we're here and we want to stay and we don't want to go back and be with our family. I don't think we're going to find that too much. But whether they want to or not, that's where they need to be.
Two-part question. Is it safe to assume that you will be on the ballot?
Yes.
For this year? Okay. Second part then is, why haven't we heard about you before? Why haven't you come to the Tea Party earlier on?
Well, I have tried to come to tea parties as many as I can. I think I've been to more than anybody else. As far as that's a good thing. I want people to know why to learn how can I get people to know about me more. The 254 tour, that's a way. And I've been to lots of tea parties, and you know what? Sometimes it's hard to find tea parties, and I didn't know about you until recently. So you didn't know about me, I didn't know about you, but now we know about each other. And I'm open for anything that you can say. And for an interested, alert person such as yourself, how could I have made myself more known to you? I really want to know that because there's a lot more other people like you out there who don't know me, and I need to reach them.
I just want to remind everybody that you were at the North Houston Tea Party. I think a couple of different events.
Yes, I try to go everywhere.
Yeah.
I try to go. I've been in a lot, and I don't think I made this one, but now I'm here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a personal thought is I'm totally dissatisfied with the current choices. Is why I'm here listening to you. I've seen you at a couple other places and listened to you, so I'm definitely interested in looking. But Kathie, your answer to the lady's question about the border was so politically correct. It's just going to turn me off if you're going to be that way.
But what about it?
You didn't give an answer to that.
I want to secure the border, and I want to send the children back.
Oh, well, that's not what you said.
It
You
is.
said
Yeah,
you had
it
to
is.
study it, learn about it, see what's happening.
I do
thought
want
that's
to.
what I heard you say.
Well, I do want to know more about it because we don't know it. I want to know how those children got here. I want to know how they got here.
But are you going to wait to send them back until after you learn that, or would
I don't
you
think it'll
send
take
them
that
back
long.
now?
I want to treat them like we would any child who's here and is unaccompanied and we don't know how they got here. I want to figure out where they came. I don't want to put them on a bus somewhere I don't know where they're going. That's not where they need to be. They need to be returned to where they came from. And we don't know that. So I don't want to send them to California. I don't want to send them anywhere except where they need to be.
You mentioned the state guard.
Yes.
Would you dispatch those to the border?
Yes.
Would you order them to turn people around and go back?
Yes.
Okay.
How many members are in the state guard? Do you know offhand?
I think it's about 2,000, but that changes. And of course, the state guard is your citizens militia, it's a volunteer group. They have jobs, they go around, they do it. But when the call comes, then we pay them a per diem. I think it's like $134 a day. But so I like that. I like having a citizens militia. I like a citizens group that's there. But if we need to increase the numbers, and I think we do, I think we can do that.
I just have one question. I don't really understand the nullification. What happens if a state goes through that and nullifies? The federal government send troops down there, and then there's what actually are the repercussions, if any, from a state taking?
When you stand up to a bully, what happens next depends more on the bully than anything else. But not standing up to the bully, you know where that's going to get you. and it's 100% guaranteed that you're gonna lose. So here, I mean, it's been done some places, it's been done in the past, not a lot recently, not in Texas. But yeah, we just need to start picking our fights and taking a stand and saying, no, you can't do this. And so what happens then, I don't know. But I know what happens if we don't do anything. And it's everything you were fearful might happen if we do stand up and more.
Well, I have one more question because it's really important. We may have covered this already, but with the Article 5 Constitutional Convention, the Mark Stein book, and everything, what's your position on that?
I'm against it. And it's not that I think it's a bad thing to be doing. It's just that, what do you not get? That's not our Constitution's fault that we're in this mess. It's that we won't enforce it. And we don't have time for the constitutional process that you're talking about. We are got to make the serious changes right away if we're going to turn this thing around. And if we were to get you got more constitutional provisions, and they won't you think they won't violate those? Of course they will. And then what are you going to do? Oh, then you're going to nullify them? Well, let's just start now. Save the trouble.
I think people would be interested to know about your property tax position.
I think property tax is the worst form of taxation we could have. And I think taxation is way too much, way more than what we need in Texas. So I want to eliminate property taxes, school taxes and others, and replace the school taxes with nothing really. Just keep sending from the state of Texas what comes from the permanent school fund and other sources. That's about $7,000 or $8,000 per child. And if, under my guest worker program, if people who came in agreed they weren't going to take taxpayer-funded services, then that money would go a lot farther if you didn't have non-citizens in the school system. So that's what I would do there. And if you can't educate a child for $7,000 or $8,000, then maybe you're just doing it wrong. But and then in the non-school property taxes, yes, I would get rid of that. And if we need to replace some revenue, I wouldn't replace it dollar for dollar, because it's not that we tax ourselves too little, it's that we spend too much. We get the spending under control. A lot of these taxes are unnecessary. But if we need to have some adjustments, I would go with the sales tax, a small adjustment to sales tax, make it broader, maybe raise it a little bit, but just wait and see, do we really need that revenue? But I want to get rid of property taxes across the board. That raised some quins.
Okay. Devil's advocate question. We're 50 years into the Great Society movement started by Lyndon Johnson. And part of that was a transfer of taxation from the states, within the states, going to the federal government and redeploying the resource. Considering our current president, who is more than willing to violate the law. And I believe you said earlier that 35% of the Texas budget is funded by the federal government.
It's been higher, but it's come down a bit.
Go up against the bully, what happens to the 35%?
I think it's going to go away regardless. I think that the federal debt is going to go out of control. We're not going to have a functioning currency at some point. So I think that can stop. It can stop cold turkey, or it can just get harder and harder to come by. So I would take that money, no strings attached. If there's any federal money that's no strings attached, I would keep taking it as long as it comes, and I would use it to get ready for the day when it's not coming at all.
Who's going to pull the string on the purse if you're not going to get it? And that's my question, is how do you deal with reducing property tax, which is a nice thing to offer, and risking the possibility of losing 35% of your income? And how do you replace that? How do we continue to lose?
Okay, some of that is Medicaid. Medicaid is almost 25%, about 25% of our state budget.
Well, I mean, but that's most of the federal money.
Yes,
the Medicaid.
and I'm saying we should opt out of Medicaid.
Right.
We don't have to say that it's a dollar for dollar savings, because we would probably want to take that money that we save, substantial as it is, and craft our own program for Texas. Consistent with what I say, Texas should make decisions for how we do these things. But I'm sure we're not going to spend that much money, because I'm sure we'll have I'm looking for a way we'll have a better product at a lower price.
But it's not negotiable from the Fed. The Feds can't withhold that money because they're not happy with something we're doing elsewhere.
I wouldn't bet on
I
that.
wouldn't, well, lawfully they couldn't.
Well,
Not afraid of
What does
that.
that have to do with anything?
but getting back to, I want to make a point here. In the last legislative session, we had our Texas legislature, Republican legislature, had a 26% windfall, unexpected increase in revenues. And it's because of the oil and gas drilling, the boom times. They didn't see this coming. They had a plan for how to spend it, but spend it they did. I would have used the line item veto and struck all that spending and some more besides. And I'll call a special session, said we're going to use this opportunity to replace that federal money, to pay down some debt, to do something that makes sense and prepares us, puts us on, restore fiscal sanity in this state instead of just spending it. But I wasn't there, so they spent it. And of course, now that's what you call it, baked in the cake. If the bus follows the boom times and we don't have that revenue coming in again, I don't think they're going to cut back and get rid of that spending. They're going to want to increase taxes and find a way to pay for it because it's somebody's pet project. But that's the sort of thing that we need to do. We may have another windfall or another good outcome in the next legislative session. But then we need to use the money to make better decisions.
I'd like to make a point on this. I've heard this so many times. Why is it automatically assumed that if the money to state or federal government is reduced, that we have to replace it? Why? We
Because
don't.
some crony is dependent on that money.
No, but I mean, it's assumed that we can't survive without it. Wow, we have become so accustomed to the fact government has number one say on our earnings that we automatically accept it.
Well, you're right. I think people are coming more and more to see a different possibility. I mean, I go around saying we spend too much on education, and people just don't fall over in a faint. I say, yeah, we do. We spend too much on. A spendthrift is a dangerous person, and that's what our schools have become. They just can't spend enough money. They can't come up with enough things to get more money. And so they're not paying attention to what they're supposed to be paying attention to. But I say if we cut our budget 50%, that's a ballpark figure. It puts us back where we were when Rick Perry took office. Now, you can think back there. We weren't a third world country then. We got stuff done. We had enough money to do the things that needed to be done. Okay, we got more people here, but they're generating more income, more sales tax. So I think we can do this if we just adjust our